On today's episode of Watch Share Go, we are here with the 350Z. We're in overtime because I'd like to drive this to Cars and Coffee in the morning, but I don't think it's gonna happen. My truck's not here, and a lot of the parts are in the back of it, like the radiator. The radiator is the one thing I need, and the core support. What is going on, guys? I am Watch Share Go, and today I'm here with my 2003 Nissan 350Z that was so beat after I got it home, we decided to have a drift car. I've always wanted to have a drift car, something I could legitimately go out and beat on, and now we have stock 18-inch wheels with Achilles on them, and Achilles, it's like the drift tire. So here we are, getting the engine back together. I still need to move the harness. The harness needs a little transplant action onto the other engine, which is over there, and the oil pans need swapped, and then that's pretty much the wrap on the engine. It's ready to be stabbed. What I want to do now is get the brakes done, because of course I have new calipers that we stole off that G35. So there's G35 parts car Orlando had, and now we've got nice calipers. It's pretty funny, they're already painted red and everything. And they've got great brake pads. I took the brake rotors as well because they're in much better shape than these ones. As you guys remember, the ones on the passenger side have worn so thin that the holes are cracking through. Obviously this caliper has been replaced. The other ones probably have too. These actually look like they have okay brake pad wear as well. But the one over there, it's definitely stuck. So just swap them both, new rotors, and that should wrap up the rear, and we'll get everything cleaned up, freed up, and bleed them. I should have some good brakes. And then eventually, obviously, as a drift car, we'll end up like cutting this shield and running a dual caliper probably, because you need a secondary hydraulic caliper so you can help initiate those drifts. I don't know how far we're going with this yet, but maybe pretty far. So it might get everything eventually. Ha-ha, this is cheating. I did not have this when I was stripping that parts car. So hopefully this thing just pops those 19s right off the back of those calipers. It doesn't. The work that's been done on this car, you'd think it was common sense how tight a caliper needs to be to not come off. Really not that tight. I think it's like, I don't know, 40, 50 foot-pounds, something like that, to make sure these gigantic bolts don't back out. So like, just tight. The big impact could not break the top bolt loose. What I had to do was get the 1/2 inch with a short socket, a short 19, stack up all my quick jack blocks on the jack, and then jack up the ratchet handle, because it's the only way I could get this thing off. That was an absolute nightmare. It took like 30 minutes. So anyway, now I can go beat this disc with a hammer, because it should just come right off, and it's not coming right off. Look at all the trash coming out of this thing. It's getting there. This rotor is toast. It is grooved out. Man, I didn't think brakes could be this bad. Going back with some non-grooved rotors there, even though they have lots of surface rust, I'm gonna spray everything off with some brake clean, vacuum up my giant brake dust mess here first, and put it back together. Time for a quick caliper swap now. Just pull that one bolt, put the line on the new one, stick it on there, and one done. I hope the other one goes a lot faster than this one, because it looks like it's an OEM caliper, which means it shouldn't have been over tightened. We have installed the new rear brake calipers, and we're ready to swap all of the brake fluid in this whole car to the wonderful Motul RBF 660, because drift car, race fluid. Makes sense, right? This is not race fluid. Take a look at the old brake fluid there. We got most of it out of the reservoir with the Mighty Vac. Now I'm gonna go dump this and make one more pass to see if we can get the rest of it out. It's pretty much all gone, but we want to get rid of it all for real. That way we have nice fresh fluid through this entire system. So one more pass with this, we'll put in some brake fluid and go to town on this bleed. The clutch fluid in this thing looks like milk. That legitimately has pulled in water or something. That's not okay. So anyway, that's on our list too. I kind of want to change the entire reservoir to the Willwood one that we can use to power bleed. We'll see. I was considering having that done already, but you know what? Let's just go ahead and suck this fluid out while we're up here messing around. And here we go. That reservoir. Wow, it has like dirt sitting at the bottom of the reservoir. There is literally built up gunk. Okay, we'll drain all this. Now we can start pouring in our race fluids. So this car is gonna run on only Motul because it's finally my race car. We're gonna have the oil, the coolant, the brake fluid. Again, it's my favorite thing to do, the super combo. Yeah. No funnels needed. I'm gonna fill this all the way to the very top. And then I'm gonna go get a rag, maybe this rag right here, and put it down in this clutch reservoir and get that cleaned out. About to blow everyone's minds with how much garbage is down here. I don't think I've ever seen anything so terrible. That's mud. How? How did that get in there? All right, we'll make one more pass just because it's still dirty. Much better. Okay, so now with our perfectly clean clutch fluid reservoir, eventually the slave's gonna need blood down there too, but I'll just fill this to the max line and we can put that cap back for now and get on to the brakes. So the mail just came in and it's time to fix what's probably my favorite tool I own, my Fluke MD88 multimeter that somehow the screws are missing for. They're inside somewhere then. But this is the special Matco edition Fluke meter. And to fix this thing, I thought I had a bad rotary dial for years, so it's been sitting because I was gonna send it in, but I couldn't, and I finally called Fluke last week and they were like, sorry, we're not gonna work on an MD88. We will upgrade you to an MD88V, which is the MD88.5 for like 350 bucks. And I was like, no, I'll just buy a whole nother meter. But I turned it on and then like hit it a couple times, seeing if I could make it work, and the screen flashed on. So then I pushed on the screen and it came back to life. So I ordered this kit off the old eBay because it was $14, and it is the screen repair kit. I thought it was the rotary dial. This thing actually has a built-in test mode to check out the rotary dial to see if that's the issue. Turns out it was not, which is awesome. So these are zebra strips here. These are conductive strips. They just have a whole bunch of little tiny metal strips running through them that are conductive. And these are the old ones. Apparently what happens to these is the zebra strips that are on the screen lose their flexibility and they stop working. So we'll just peel off these junk pink ones. You take the new ones and you just drop them in the slot. Some people say you have to clean these with alcohol, but the tutorial for this said absolutely do not clean them with alcohol, so I'm not going to. I'm just gonna toss these new strips in, set the screen down. The glass itself has little conductive spots, which is pretty cool. And the screen self-centers quite a bit, and then this actually centers it. So wiggle this around a little bit till we're sure it's actually on there. Don't break the screens because there are 0 replacements. Apparently you cannot get a new screen if you break this. I do not want to break it because this is my favorite meter. This Matco edition actually has an RPM clamp that you put on the spark plug wire and tells the RPM on screen. Super old. I bought this thing years ago. Haha! Okay, this is a very, very, very soft shirt, as all Watch Jericho shirts are. Shop watchjericho.com. You guys know what I'm saying. Set this guy in. Put our 9-volt battery on. Old school Flukes. They were all 9-volt battery back then. This is the fun part, because you do have to not drop the buttons. Oh, it goes on the other direction. Ah, drop the buttons. Front goes on first, then the back. Yeah! My meter is alive again. I am the happiest person right now. Okay, I'm gonna go put the screws in it. We'll tighten this thing up. And it's a brand new battery. Yes. It's kind of slow. These old ones are slow. Has to like click and then it turns on. But anyway, it works wonderfully. The most accurate meters there are. And then we'll put the rubber sleeve back on it so it looks legit again. If you don't have the yellow sleeve, like what are you doing with a Fluke? Screws going back in, everything got a quick wipe down there. Wiped off the top of the screen, make sure there weren't any fingerprints on it. Magnetic screwdriver for the loss. Pulling the screws out. Boom. Meter. She was good to go. Round 2, new meter. Hey, back to work. So, back to the Nissan. Eric's in there finishing up the garbage disposal magic. And we decided to run out here and swap out these bleeder screws real quick because we have this one that's so rusted, the bleeder hole is just unusable. So, unscrew this whole thing. Luckily, these didn't stick in the hole. Usually, you're just completely out of luck once this happens. But, quick trip to O'Reilly's for H9409-2, and boom, we now have a bleeder screw that works. And I'm covered in brake fluid. Legitimately covered in brake fluid. Oh yes, that's the headlight connector. Oh. And apparently those headlights have been unplugged for a little while.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we just finished bleeding the brakes, and Jake was like, they feel pretty good. And I was like, what's that mean? And I got in there and I checked it out, and I was like, wow, that pedal is awesome. And I was loading it with the pry bar, putting all my weight on each one of these things while Jake stepped on the brakes, and we just basically went until that thing all locked up. It's got brakes now. So back to engines. Now we've got all the everything else that needed done.
Brakes are okay. They're no Miata though.
No, that's true. Yeah. Nothing is a Miata. Yeah. A Miata with an ABS delete will do a 4-wheel slide down the highway if you stab the brake. So we're draining the oil out of this guy, and I'm not sure if that's oil or just liquid metal.
Just VQ things.
Just VQ things. And on another note, we have a whole lot of Nissan engines hanging in the air in here.
Ooh, that's gritty.
Is it?
Ooh.
No wonder this thing's toast.
I'm not gonna taste it. I'm not the wizard.
Oh,
but
wow.
That is bad.
That is straight up particulate. Man, this engine killed itself.
I've never seen an engine that bad.
Do you think it'll balance? Sketchy! Are you just having fun with the oil at this point?
Yeah.
Entire wiring harness is off of this engine. It has to be moved over to that one. And the intake is apart because all of the intake had to come off. To strip the wiring harness, you have to get underneath the intake quite a few times. And then we had to put it back on to lift the engine, and now we can pull this oil pan and get it over on that guy. After we clean it, of course. So there's a little bit left to do, but we're getting close, finally. Does it smell good?
It smells burnt.
It smells like you're smelling it a lot. That's a lot of smells.
Nose don't work so goodly.
Okay, whoever did this oil pan last time had a plan, and their plan was to make sure this car could never leak a drop in its life. But what it actually meant was it's impossible to get the oil pan off. So, with the help of Gabe and Jake and I, and this big pry bar and this big screwdriver, we eventually got this thing to just barely break free. And after that, we could get a little more of the pry bar in there and work it off. I'd say this one had 2 to 3 times the RTV that one did. But the cool part about it is it does have an absolutely good crank position sensor hole. And we did talk about welding that and tapping it and just running that pan, because like everyone said, those are stress cracks. It probably will never leak oil through any of those cracks or anything, just cheap casting. But now we've got that one off. We've got a known good oil pan since we're kind of going way too far into this rebuild. And we're gonna run this over, stick it in the parts washer, and do the exact same thing and hopefully get something out that is that clean. Absolutely clean. And then pan on, build the intake, do the valve covers, do the plenum spacer and all that stuff, put this wiring harness on, and just go to town. I think at that point, this engine is finally ready to go in. It's been much longer than it ever should have taken, but we are getting it done. Jake is intently working. Let's get back to it.
Important business.
Yeah, obviously business.
You know, real YouTuber stuff going on here.
Like not doing your laundry?
Yeah, this is what they...
And now, after many hours of work, oil pan number 2 is prepped, ready to be RTV'd and attached to the engine. So, I'm gonna put on the rear main because it goes on first. It's sitting right there. The bolts are sorted by the way they came out of the engine. They're gonna go back the exact same way. I'm just gonna look up the torque spec. I'm sure it's like 20, 30 foot-pounds. It's nothing crazy. It's all 10s. But I'll look up the torque spec and then put the rear main on, put the oil pan on. And we're pretty much home free. After that, obviously, the wiring harness gets to go back on. That is one wild, huge wiring harness. But we're gonna get it done. I'm also super happy we took the time to go clean the oil cooler on that one. So much metal came out of that thing. It sat there and fogged metal out forever in the smart washer. I just ended up sticking the nozzle down in it and letting it pump. because just metal and oil just kept coming out. It was crazy. So should be clean now, and it's been rinsed with brake clean too. It is currently 3:33 in the morning. The garage is looking very, very crowded, but this engine is back on the ground. The intake is off, and it is valve cover time. And then I got in here and I was like, wow, those valve covers are involved. So it's actually gonna take quite a while to get all the fasteners and all the rest of the hoses and all the brackets off these things. So we're just gonna throw in the towel for the night. It's time to go to bed, and we'll get back to it in the morning with new valve covers there. And once the new valve covers go on, intake goes back on. I got a new set of intake gaskets, and then our plenum spacer goes on, upper intake goes on, engine back in car. That's what I'm looking forward to. So we're getting there very quickly. That is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to head on over to shop.watchsharego.com where you get cool shirts just like this. And thank you so much for following along on the 350Z drift build. I'm pretty pumped about how it's going together really well. Almost everything's new. So hopefully no leaks, no problems down the road. Hopefully it runs for a long time. That said, please like, share, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will talk to you next time. On today's episode of Watch Share Go, Jake came over and I was like, hey, look, I'll just free up my garbage disposal real quick with the old Allen wrench on the bottom. And then all the water came out of my sink. So I don't think we need a video about this. It's pretty easy to change a garbage disposal. Plus, these use that quick mount, so you just put it on and twist. Done and done. 2-stage grinder though. Pretty cool.
Oh, this is like calciumified.
Oh man, that was from the days before the house had the water softener. Well, this is taking more than 30 seconds, so I figured we'd start recording. Putting new core grip on.
That's because everything's rusted.
Yeah, it is. Super rusted. Alright, that's pretty good. It's gone forever.